Hey everybody. In this section of the video, we're going to go ahead and look at how do we actually get sources from Wikipedia. And in particular, we're going to be focusing on how Wikipedia organizes sources on its site. And in the next video after this, we're going to be looking at some of the dangers of being too reliant on Wikipedia for sources. So the first thing I want to point out is that, in this one we're going to be looking at the 82nd Airborne Division. And the 82nd Airborne, this is the unit that I personally served with. I was in the 82nd for about 3 years as a paratrooper. I must give the caveat, though, that I was too injured to jump for most of those, so I was kind of a sad paratrooper. Now, because the 82nd is a relatively well-known and uh, historically important unit, it has a lot of information available about it. Okay, so for example, this image right here, that's the subdued patch from the 82nd. There are all kinds of images like this, and as you start to scroll down, when it gives engagements over here, the 82nd started in World War One, continued in World War II, and you'll notice that there are all kinds of operations that they participated in. Battle of the Bulge, for example, uh, fairly well-known battle. Market Garden, that was what the movie A Bridge Too Far was based on. Operation Overlord, that's D-Day. So the 82nd Airborne, pretty well-known unit. All right. Now, you'll notice, in the table of contents here, lots and lots of sections here. Okay. And rather than go through all of these, what I'm going to do is draw your attention down to the bottom. Okay. So here, where they have uh, see also, notes, further reading, and external links. Okay, so the most important one typically is the notes. All right, for a Wikipedia article, this is essentially the works cited page where they indicate which specific pieces of information came from which sources. And so whenever you see a number, such as this one here, that's going to show up in the notes. All right. Now, further reading provides typically more reliable sources, but they are not necessarily referenced in the article. And so this is one of the reasons why Wikipedia is not um, it's not a good source to cite in your papers. Instead, you want to look at those further reading ones. Okay, and then external links, those tend to link to more primary sources. But in particular, they're linking to things that are specifically about the topic, but not necessarily in-depth analyses. So let's go scroll down and take a look here. Okay. So this first one, the notes, you'll notice there are a lot of notes. This article has a lot of citations. Okay. Um, and right off the bat, some of these are pretty good. Army.mil, obviously going to be a primary source. It's the official website of the U.S. Army. Okay, military.com is, I believe, also, if not run by the military, then by an organization closely related with it. Okay. Now here, the United States Army Center of Military History, again, most likely going to be a primary source. Now, these sources as primaries, when I looked them up, they did not provide a lot of information. And so what you'll want to do is scroll down a little bit further, and you'll find sources like this. Like here, the Brigade, a history. This is from the Combat Studies Institute Press. I'm not personally familiar with that press, but this looks like a somewhat, I would say, a fairly reliable source. Okay. Now further down, here, 82nd Division Record of Events, World War I. Again, a primary source, likely going to be very helpful if we're looking at World War I. Okay. Now here is a good source. Ridgway's Paratroopers, the American Airborne in World War II, Naval Institute Press. This is a source that is clearly, there's no link to it. It might be available online, or we might be able to get it through the library. Okay. But what I want to note is that these sources that we're seeing under the notes, they're fairly disparate. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. Like for example, where was I looking at? The name for 82nd Airborne Division to be chosen by next Sunday, April 2nd, 1918. Okay. This source will likely not tell us much about the 82nd Airborne. It will likely tell us more about that time period and how people were talking about the military. And so this would most likely be a primary source when looking at public thoughts on World War I. Okay? If we wanted to really look at the 82nd, though, we'd want to scroll down here a little further to where it says further reading. Okay, and so these sources, most of these, just from a quick scan, these are books, and one of the reasons they're listed under further reading is because they're not readily available online. Okay, and so they can't get a direct link from Wikipedia, and so if you do want to access these, you will most likely need to go through the library. Now, one of the issues with books like these is that although these are good, if you want to define them, you'd have to be typing in each one individually. And so one of the shortcomings of Wikipedia is it doesn't necessarily indicate which of these you would want to start with. Okay? Now, I myself, because I was in the 82nd, I know who General James Gavin is. And so now that I see his name there, all right, he was one of the commanding generals of the 82nd during World War II. So his book, I would definitely go look up through Heartland Library, or possibly even through Amazon if I wanted to purchase a copy. But something I want to emphasize here is that, you have to know something about your topic to know that this would be, you have to know something about the 82nd Airborne in order to know that General Gavin's book is something relevant to look up. And so this is one of the reasons why I recommend that you choose a topic that you are personally interested in and invested in, because you will already have a degree of knowledge that will help you use Wikipedia and other sources more effectively when judging which sources to use. So with that, in the next video, I'm going to go ahead and talk with you a bit more about the dangers of using Wikipedia sources without checking where they came from first.